Tonight on 24, Israel says attacks on Iran have stopped at Trump's request, but the work with the Islamic Republic isn't over. Trump has warned Netanyahu that if there's an all-out war with Iran, he might be left alone. Tehran says if there's a potential attack, the region will turn into hell. Board of Governors meeting on the Islamic Republic's nuclear file. Grossi has said that a potential agreement isn't trustworthy without independent oversight and the arrival of Iran's caravan in Tijuana. The Iranian national football team's first practice in Mexico under tight security measures.
From the Iran International Studio, this is 24 with Fardad Farahzad.
Hello and good evening to Iran International viewers in Iran and around the world. Just an hour ago, Donald Trump told Israel's Channel 12 that he warned Benjamin Netanyahu that if the country's attacks on Iran turn into an all-out war with the Islamic Republic, Israel might, according to him, ultimately be left alone. Earlier, Israeli media had said that Israel stopped attacks on Iran at Trump's request, but military operations against Hezbollah targets in southern Lebanon are continuing. The Israeli army has announced that it attacked 20 targets in several Iranian provinces, including Tehran, Isfahan, and Khuzestan, in response to the Islamic Republic's attacks. Meanwhile, the Israeli Prime Minister says the confrontation with Hezbollah and the Islamic Republic isn't over yet, and if Tehran attacks Israel again, it will be responded to with full force.
Iran and Hezbollah are weaker than ever, and we are stronger than ever. But the battle with them isn't over yet. Over the past 24 hours, Iran and Hezbollah tried to impose a new equation on us, an unbearable and unacceptable equation. They thought they could fire at Israel from Lebanese and Iranian soil, and we wouldn't react, but that didn't happen, and it never will.
Our reporters, Samira Garai from the White House and Babak Sagi from Tel Aviv are with us. Samira, this approach Mr. Trump is showing, it seems that even an attack on Israel isn't a red line for him to fully resume the war.
No, specifically, Mr. Trump really tried hard over the past 24 hours to de-escalate. He tried to stop Israel from carrying out an attack. And even before that, when the discussion about attacks on Beirut and Zahieh came up, the Islamic Republic threatened to stop negotiations. And Mr. Trump, came out here and there saying it didn't matter to him. Basically, we've talked too much with the Islamic Republic side. It's probably better if we don't talk for a while. But a few hours later, we witnessed him appear on social media and declare that he had asked the Israelis, in a constructive call with Mr. Netanyahu, to halt their attacks on Beirut. He then added that our negotiations were progressing exceptionally well and quickly. This pattern of behavior by Mr. Trump is quite similar to actions observed again over the past 24 hours. Now, a newer account we're hearing about what happened yesterday between Mr. Trump and Netanyahu. Barak Ravid is reporting that he had a phone call with Mr. Trump, claiming that Mr. Trump asserts he scaled down, that he reduced the scope of the attacks Israel was planning. But at the same time, he says when they informed us, the missiles were already in the air. But he claims he was able to have an impact. Mr. Trump himself had talked about the phone call yesterday, saying he told the Israeli side, Mr. Netanyahu, not to carry out an attack in retaliation for what the Islamic Republic did. And then he came and said, Islamic Republic, you launched your missiles. Let's come to the negotiation table and negotiate. He claims we are in the final phases of negotiations that are leading to an agreement. Following a critical phone call, both President Trump's and Prime Minister Netanyahu's teams firmly believed a mutual understanding had been reached. The impending attack would be delayed by 3 or 4 days, or at least for a few days. Mr. Trump concluded the conversation confident in this postponement. However, almost immediately afterward, Mr. Netanyahu convened his cabinet. Subsequently, he directly informed Mr. Ruby that we will launch an attack against the Islamic Republic. This abrupt move suggests Mr. Trump was not even Mr. Netanyahu's primary point of contact for such a crucial decision. This specific narrative is currently being presented by Israel's Channel 12. And today, Fardad, again, Mr. Trump came on social media after this exchange of fire happened. Mr. Trump came on social media and wrote that both countries are moving towards a ceasefire. We are in the final phase of negotiations. I will also continue the naval blockade until I reach a final agreement. Actually, Mr. Trump's demand, what he himself is now showing, and what the media here in the United States is heavily focusing on, is de-escalation, and that he hasn't stood by Israel in this matter. So what's being depicted right now, at this hour, is that the Americans didn't even intercept the Islamic Republic's missiles. The Wall Street Journal says an interception happened. The Israeli side had said they intercepted the missiles. The American side has now spoken with CNN. One of the informed officials says, "We had no involvement in intercepting and tracking the missiles the Islamic Republic sent. But we know Eyal Zamir and Admiral Bragg Huber spoke on the phone twice last night while these missile launches were happening." But the American side wants to at least present it in the media as if they had no role even in taking down and intercepting the missiles. The Americans believe they are moving towards an understanding. Pakistan's Shehbaz Sharif also made such a claim in the past hours, saying that a diplomatic agreement is achievable and that we can achieve the diplomatic demands we are pursuing. And Mr. Trump himself hasn't spoken publicly today yet, aside from the phone calls he's had. He's not here right now. Tomorrow he'll be in New Jersey. We'll have to see if we might hear more from Mr. Trump about these issues by the end of the day or not. But regarding the point I made about the naval blockade, concurrently, a CENTCOM operation targeted an empty tanker journeying from the Sea of Oman towards an Iranian port, whose exact identity remained unclear. A Super Hornet fighter jet launched from the USS Abraham Lincoln aircraft carrier executed a precise strike on the tanker's engine room. Crucially, the vessel was staffed by over 20 Indian crew members. CNN reporters independently observed and documented the critical emergency messages transmitted by these mariners during the incident. So at the same time, we're seeing an increase in tension on the water there too. Mr. Trump insists this blockade is continuing, but as for a major front breaking out, Mr. Trump has done everything he could in these 24 hours to prevent that.
Babak, I don't know if there are more extensive coordinations behind the scenes. Is this part of a good cop, bad cop game? But what we're seeing on the surface right now is that there doesn't seem to be very good relations between Mr. Netanyahu and Trump at this moment. Even that initial report Axios gave, which said vulgar language was used against Mr. Netanyahu, Mr. Trump somewhat confirmed in an interview. What kind of feedback is this getting on the ground right now inside Israel? What's the political cost for Mr. Netanyahu?
Fardad, we must not forget that Israel has officially entered an election year, a critical period dictating that all statements from Israeli politicians be taken with a significant grain of salt. Every political actor, without exception, is now squarely focused on the upcoming October elections, influencing every public pronouncement. Whether it's Lapid's statements today, Bennett's remarks, or Netanyahu's own pronouncements, their core motivations are inextricably linked to electoral success and securing votes. Netanyahu, notably, had expected to enter these elections with greater leverage, stemming from his exceptionally close bond with Donald Trump. Their alliance often yielded considerable political benefits and strategic support. Consequently, unlike his historically combative stance and strong criticisms directed at the Obama and Biden administrations, Netanyahu has conspicuously refrained from uttering any harsh or strong words towards Trump. This strategic silence suggests a calculated effort to preserve potential future political capital from that influential relationship. But what's occupying Israel today, Fardad, isn't the relationship between Trump and Netanyahu. Instead, the overriding concern for every citizen is the persistent threat posed by the Islamic Republic and Hezbollah of Lebanon, underscored by what happened in these pivotal 24 hours. These events will show in the future, even in the coming days, how Israel will face the Dahiyya challenge or Dahiyya test, a doctrine of robust disproportionate retaliation. If tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, Hezbollah of Lebanon attacks inside Israel, the critical question remains, will Israel attack Dahiyya and Beirut again, applying it after these significant 24 hours? If not, then the Islamic Republic and Hezbollah were the winners of these 24 hours and the Dahiyya test. If Israel attacks Dahia, like it said it would, after Hezbollah's attack and missile launch towards Israel, then if the Islamic Republic doesn't attack Israel again, well, then this time Israel has won this game. And, as a result, we're back to what we were talking about regarding Donald Trump and Israel. If this happens and Israel, wins this, then Trump will definitely align himself with Netanyahu's policies too. Today, Netanyahu repeatedly emphasized in his speech that Israel is closely coordinated with the United States and enjoys friendly relations with President Trump. He aimed to project an image of strong alliance and mutual support. However, what is widely known within Israel contradicts this public assertion. It's understood that Trump explicitly warned Netanyahu before a potential attack, stating that Israel would be isolated globally if it proceeded. Moreover, as Samira mentioned, Trump specifically asked him not to respond to the Islamic Republic's missile attack. Despite these clear warnings and requests, Netanyahu, contrary to expectations, launched an attack against the Islamic Republic. Consequently, and as Samira highlighted, the United States was informed of this significant action very, very late, suggesting a profound disconnect between public declarations and actual operational coordination. To mitigate the perceived damage and consequences, former President Trump declared that a far more extensive attack was initially anticipated. He asserted personal intervention, claiming he successfully reduced its scale and applied substantial pressure on Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to achieve this de-escalation. This narrative aimed to underscore his influence in peacemaking efforts. Simultaneously, Prime Minister Netanyahu, addressing the situation today, emphatically reiterated that the Islamic Republic and its proxy, Hezbollah, would absolutely not be permitted to establish a new regional balance of power or alter the existing strategic equation. This strong declaration signifies Israel's commitment to preserving its full operational freedom and its capability to act decisively against Hezbollah. Crucial, Israel unequivocally rejects any formal linking of the Iranian front with the Lebanese front, emphasizing their distinct nature to prevent an automatic broader regional conflagration. Today, in a clear indication of escalating tensions, several attacks were carried out in southern Lebanon since morning. This comes despite assertions from Khatama Anbiya headquarters that southern Lebanon is a crucial component of the strategic balance and regional equation established by the Islamic Republic. However, in a notable contrast, Hezbollah did not execute any attacks inside Israel today. The limited engagements observed were confined to Lebanese territory and targeted soldiers present within those Lebanese borders. We are, in any case, keenly observing where this ongoing power struggle over Lebanon's future between Israel and the Islamic Republic ultimately leads. Fardad.
Thank you both, Samira Garai at the White House and Baba Kisaki from Tel Aviv. In response to recent clashes in Tehran, Mohammad Bakr Zolkad, Secretary of the Supreme National Security Council, said that if the Israel-US coalition attacks, the region, according to him, will become hell for them. At the same time, Mohammad Bakr Ghalibaf, Speaker of Parliament, said that the Islamic Republic has disrupted the ceasefire equation on paper by repeatedly violating it on the ground. He said on X that as long as the other side does not show a real will for confidence building, the Islamic Republic's response will continue. Japa Rajabi, political analyst, has, joined us. Mr. Rajabi, on the one hand, the perception is that, the Islamic Republic has become very weak, but we see that even in these circumstances, it's attacking Israel again. They'd naturally have a certain confidence. Where does it, come from?
Warm greetings. Yeah, weakening, has different aspects. Iran is a big country with various dimensions. Economic dimensions, political dimensions, legitimacy. I mean, what kind of weakness should we, see? If, we only see the entire power of a country on, for example, a ballistic missile, where now 1 out of 10 hits, or on a drone, it has power. But if not, you have to see a country that has economic resilience to even militarily defend what it does. I mean, it can pay the price, be tolerable. Then its issues become, much more complicated. A country that now has a leader who is, lost and cannot be found. On the other hand, I actually think differently about this equation and the events of the last 24 hours and before. I don't see the issue as superficial, particularly the Dahia equation. When the ceasefire between Hezbollah and Israel happened, I believe around 2024, Israel was constantly attacking Lebanon, and there was no response. However, if they intend to implement this specific equation, which dictates a precise retaliatory dynamic, on Iran, it's simply not possible. Iran is an incredibly vast and geographically complex country. Making such a direct application utterly infeasible given its immense scale. But they do something else. Look, when the Islamic Republic fires a bunch of missiles at a place, it's somewhere that maybe doesn't have that much military impact. I mean, I want to talk about its power. It doesn't have a military impact in military equations. Areas where, well, they go into basements for a few hours. Yes, it has an impact as a balance of terror, but we're talking about military matters here. But when America or Israel attacks, they do pinpoint strikes. They plan for a specific target. For example, if you look at the skirmishes that happen every now and then in the Strait of Hormuz, they hit a ship, and then America comes and hits back. Where does America hit then? It hits one of the IRGC's eyes and ears that's stationed on the strait. After a few back and forths, they don't do anything else. This very issue that's been happening in the last 24 hours. Well, all these points it hits. This has an impact, meaning the ceasefire isn't broken. The way you saw it, I'm one of those who says there's no way Netanyahu didn't coordinate with Trump, didn't tell Trump, didn't get logistics from America with Trump for this operation he carried out. But, well, on the other hand, something needs to happen so that the regional war the Islamic Republic is after to set everyone on fire together doesn't happen. And that ceasefire, which we can see as a harsh diplomacy, isn't broken. And on the other hand, a critical outcome must be prevented, particularly for the strategic interests of Israel and America, where any potential ceasefire allows the Islamic Republic to systematically rebuild its intricate chain of regional influence, rearm its proxies, or restore its financial networks. Such a development would severely undermine long-term stability. Consequently, I believe these recent events, occurring in the last 24 hours, along with the previous incidents in the vital Strait of Hormuz, are all interconnected parts of a broader strategic equation. This situation places them under an intensified maximum pressure campaign, characterized by a comprehensive siege, persistent military considerations, and the immediate urgency of swift negotiations. All of this makes it so that the Islamic Republic, you see now, can fire missiles and launch drones. Yet it's neglecting other crucial dimensions, like economic or social stability. America and Israel are strategically going after these very issues, aiming to subtly and unconsciously break the regime's foundational chain of control. Do you believe these persistent exchanges of fire, continuing despite various de-escalation efforts and existing ceasefires, whether between Iran and America, or now notably between Iran and Israel, could truly reignite a wider, devastating regional conflict? I am convinced another full-blown conflict is coming, but before it fully erupts, America or Israel definitely have complex, multifaceted plans. I anticipate this new conflict will be very different from the current one. Its preconditions are unfolding now, visibly setting the stage. These include the Strait of Hormuz issue, the creation of new strategic paths, and other geopolitical equations. Crucially, despite the escalating tensions, a clear way forward exists and is being actively pursued. Look, let's put America aside for a moment. Israel, for example, can't. We want to think from Israel's perspective. We're not praising or criticizing. We're thinking from that person's point of view. Israel looks at itself this way and says, I can't come and fight again every 10 years. Come and get ready again. That's why we see Israel paying a heavy price since October 7th. Well, its country has been in a state of war until now. I think Israel is looking for what you could call continuous, longer-term security. Put that aside, regional countries have also joined in. Now, regardless of the fact that we see them, for example, maybe even talking with the Islamic Republic, but they also see that, well, these were the same people who attacked us one night, or those people who attacked Israel. So they want continuous security with, at the very least, these same people in power and the military structure that's been built. With the structure that's been built, there's no long-term security for these two groups. Let's put these specific incidents aside for a moment. It's clear that a significant portion of the world has profoundly suffered from the Islamic Republic's continuous practice of hostage-taking, which creates widespread instability. Consider, too, the powerful and wealthy actors who clearly witness how the Islamic Republic consistently asserts its control and disrupts regional peace. In your estimation, can these influential parties realistically tolerate another 10, 15, or even 20 years of this? Such a scenario would mean the Islamic Republic ignites a new conflict every 3 or 4 years, only for a far larger and more devastating war to erupt eventually. I don't think so. I strongly believe this pressing issue will be resolved during Trump's term. There are essentially two paths. One is the Islamic Republic manages to firmly establish itself, gaining such widespread, albeit reluctant, acceptance that the global community concedes, okay, it's here to stay now. Yet, for reasons I've previously articulated, I find this outcome highly improbable. The other, more probable scenario is that regional countries, particularly Israel, along with global economic and geopolitical pressures, will collectively force the regime to extricate itself from its entrenched position. This can manifest either through a larger, more decisive conflict, continued precise strikes, or by deploying various other strategic cards designed to eliminate this pervasive threat.
And the fact that the Islamic Republic has taken such a risk because of Hezbollah, does it show that the issue isn't just survival for them, and that maintaining proxy groups is still a vital issue for them, to the extent that they're willing to put themselves in such jeopardy?
I don't think it's about Hezbollah. Hezbollah is a psychological issue for them. Iraq is slipping away. Some of their groups have come to hand over weapons. Even right now, if you look, a part of Lebanon's Shia community has cut ties with the Islamic Republic. This is their psychological thing, where the Islamic Republic says, no, I'll defend you. Like, if they're like those countries that, for example, catch a spy somewhere and say, I'll just release this one so that other spies don't give themselves away either. But it's past that stage now. They've lost themselves. This was a psychological issue where the Islamic Republic wanted to say, I'm behind you. Now, look, the Houthis are in the middle of the same thing. They're actually making a transactional equivalent behind the scenes. They've been asked several times to do something big in Bab al-Mandab, but they haven't. This is a psychological thing. But what's real is, why did it do this? The Islamic Republic wanted to, in these negotiations that are currently happening, come and say, I still have power. It still wanted, for example, to play a new card for itself. But the thing is, Israel started its strikes by hitting the refinery, by hitting infrastructure. That second one, that card it wanted to play, was to say, no, I can still endure the conflict. Don't threaten me with war. I, myself, am ready for war. That card didn't really play out. And that first one, the message it wanted to send to those groups. Really, the issue of Iraq is extremely dire for the Islamic Republic right now. Its most loyal people are handing over weapons to it. The Houthis are making deals. That psychological thing, that psychological message it wants to send, it's really too late now. I think that at least it's not the kind of situation where the Islamic Republic can, with these actions, try to rebuild its axis again, something that, well, was there before all these stories.
Thank you. Jaber Rajabi, political analyst, was with us. Regarding the conflicts between the Islamic Republic and Israel, media outlets in the U.S., describing the ceasefire as fragile, say that the likelihood of renewed conflict is high. Axios also stated that the main concern in Washington right now is Trump's ability to rein in Netanyahu in the U.S. Congress. Republican Senator Rick Scott also described the Islamic Republic as evil and emphasized that Israel defends its right to exist and that the security of the U.S. and Israel should not be threatened by, in his words, terrorists. Marzia Hosseini has joined us from Congress. Marzia, after this recent tension between Iran and Israel, how much of the equations there in Congress change now?
It's a very interesting atmosphere here in the U.S. Congress. For example, I'll give an example. Senator Lindsey Graham, who was constantly tweeting and expressing opinions about Iran, hasn't said a single word about Iran and Israel in the past 24 hours. Why? Because it's election season. They are heavily involved in the elections happening in their states. And for this reason, they are trying to cautiously distance themselves from the current issue, and in fact, not incur further political costs for this war, which, in their opinion, does not concern the U.S. The press also says the same is true for the dynamic between Trump and Netanyahu. They say that what we witnessed between these two individuals in the current time frame is because if Israel had not launched a retaliatory attack on Iran yesterday, the September elections in Israel would have been lost. And if it had attacked and there were repercussions, the November elections here in the US would have slid away from Trump. The geopolitical situation is actually quite complex right now. While positions are different, generally, the critical decoding of what transpired in the last 24 hours, what occurred on the 100th day of the protracted war and the 62nd day of the fragile ceasefire, is just starting to fully unfold in the US press and Congress. And specifically, analysts are interpreting what motivated the Islamic Republic to dare to launch a preemptive attack, what made Israel willing to carry out these retaliatory attacks on Iran despite strong US opposition, and related implications. Analysis of senatorial statements and American media reveals two primary perspectives. One prevalent view is a conspiracy theory, suggesting recent events are entirely orchestrated by Trump. This perspective, found in certain press and even a BBC analysis, claims that despite publicly declaring opposition to the regional fire, Trump secretly gave Israelis the green light for this attack, citing two undisclosed reasons. This contrasts with other interpretations, highlighting a polarized media landscape regarding the unfolding situation. They say the talks on Sunday, meaning the assessment of Trump's statements in his Sunday interviews, indicated that the negotiation table, contrary to what Mr. Trump says, is at an absolute deadlock because he specifically said in his interview with NBC that we are not willing to not only not give money to the Islamic Republic now, but also not lift sanctions. But even after signing an agreement, we'll have to see how the Islamic Republic behaves. We know that Reuters has simultaneously reported that Mr. Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, is looking into distributing the Islamic Republic's frozen funds among the Arab countries in the region that have suffered from the Islamic Republic's attacks. On the other hand, we know that specifically, the New York Times reported today that the Islamic Republic wants two phases of $12 billion from the US. One time the first phase, one time the last phase. All these reports indicate that specifically, there's a very big knot at the negotiation table, just regarding financial issues. That's also from the situation in Lebanon, and also from the nuclear negotiations. They say Trump knows that negotiations aren't going anywhere, but because of the upcoming elections in the US, he also doesn't have the patience for political tension. He's given Israel a free hand, and Israel is doing what it wants to do. On the other hand, the Washington Post, for example, also published a report. It said, no, Trump is really desperate. Trump is truly at his wit's end with Netanyahu. They say when Trump realized that the 40-day war plan Israel sold to the US was actually overpriced and practically not a sound plan, we witnessed a distance between Washington and Israel, which was actually confirmed by last week's phone call and calling Netanyahu crazy. And currently, Washington has no control over Israel. However, they say that probably in yesterday's conversation between Trump and Netanyahu, Netanyahu promised Trump, he pleaded with him, to allow even a limited face-saving attack on Iran, just so he doesn't lose the upcoming elections in Israel.
Thanking colleague Marzieh Hosseini, Congress. Following the media's reaction in the U.S. to America's stance on the Israel-Islamic Republic conflict, the U.S. official told CNN that the U.S. military did not intercept any of the ballistic missiles fired by Iran towards Israel. However, this official confirmed that the Israeli Army and U.S. Central Command, CENTCOM, had close coordination over the past 24 hours, and the Israeli Army Chief of Staff spoke twice with the CENTCOM commander. Farzin Nadimi, a senior research fellow for defense and security affairs at the Washington Institute, is with us from this very city. Mr. Nadimi, is it conceivable that the war situation could go in a direction where the U.S. doesn't have an active role in the next potential war and largely leaves the war to Israel?
It's certainly conceivable that Israel takes the lead and the United States provides a supporting role.
صندلی جلو رو اسرائیل داشته باشه و ایالات متحده صرفاً یک نقش پشتیبانی کننده رو
A conflict echoing the parameters of the 12-day war, potentially with a compressed or expanded duration, is highly probable. This stems from the White House and the U.S. president's strong reluctance for extensive entanglement in Iran simultaneously. A key strategic objective is to sustain and amplify pressure on the Islamic government to compel concessions in diplomatic negotiations. This presents an ideal scenario. Significant pressure is brought to bear on the Iranian regime, perhaps through targeted actions that degrade specific military assets or infrastructure. Crucially, while its military capabilities are weakened, channels for dialogue remain open, allowing for continued exchange of views and the ultimate attainment of a temporary but strategically important agreement. But we'll have to see if Tehran has such a desire. If this situation continues in the long run, will they merely continue to engage with Israel? Or will they suffice? Or will they at some point escalate the level of tension and try to influence the Persian Gulf countries as well?
خلیج فارس رو هم سعی می‌کنن تحت تاثیر.
Given their considerable influence over the White House, the U.S. government, and CENTCOM, the pressures from these countries are invariably effective. However, in my opinion, Israel initiated this conflict with the explicit prospect of a short, contained engagement. The intention was to continue military actions for a mere 1 or 2 weeks, specifically targeting a precise series of objectives, predominantly chosen for their direct connection to Iran's critical missile program. The inclination of both the Islamic government and the Revolutionary Guard leaned towards a swift conclusion to the conflict. This preference emerged despite their initial show of force, which involved launching attacks and demonstrating a readiness for rapid retaliation to assert their capabilities. Ultimately, however, they opted to de-escalate quickly. Upon realizing the extent of Israel's strategic planning, the precise nature of Israel's attacks on crucial air defense systems across Iran served as a clear message. These strikes unequivocally indicated that Israel was systematically preparing the operational environment for its air force, aiming to establish a more extensive and secure presence over Iranian airspace, thereby ensuring greater safety for its aerial operations. This could unfold soon, as Israeli operations are expanding in southern Lebanon. An Iranian spokesperson from Khatam al-Anbiya headquarters indicated a response if Beirut or southern Lebanon were attacked, suggesting potential escalation in the coming days.
در صورتی که حمله به بیروت بشه در درجه اول، ولی اسمی از جنوب.
They also made a threat regarding southern Lebanon. Now, it might be half-hearted, but anyway, we'll have to see. If Israeli attacks expand in southern Lebanon, reaching the Zahran region, moving towards Nabatea, where, by the way, Shiites and Hezbollah also have a lot of sensitivity, the level of tension might rise to the point where missile exchanges and bombings occur again.
Thank you. Farzin Nadimi, a senior research fellow at the Washington Institute, specializing in defense and security, joins us. The Director General of the International Atomic Energy Agency says the Islamic Republic's nuclear file has entered a complex phase, but the agency has faced such situations before as well. Rafael Grossi said the agency continues its efforts to engage with Tehran and pursue inspections of Iran's nuclear facilities. More details from my colleague Ahmad Samadi.
The IAEA Board of Governors meeting was held while, prior to this, Mr. Rafael Grossi had expressed concern in a report to the board members that the agency does not have access to the Islamic Republic's nuclear program and lacks sufficient knowledge about what actions the Islamic Republic is taking regarding its nuclear activities. The most important concern that the Board of Governance is discussing and reviewing today is the fate of Iran's enriched uranium stockpiles, especially 440 kilograms of 60% enriched uranium, which Mr. Grossi is demanding that the Islamic Republic come forward and inform where these uraniums are being stored and what their fate is, how much of it remains. Then Mr. Grossi came among reporters and spoke about various issues, including the ongoing talks between Iran and the US, as well as whether Iran is adhering to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty or not, which in that case, it will become clear which direction Iran's nuclear process is heading. I myself also asked him a question about the evolving Iran-US talks and the progressing conditions. I also addressed the current challenges facing the agency regarding crucial inspections and verification of Iran's nuclear program. To this, Mr. Grossi stated any talks without the agency's direct presence would fundamentally be an illusion for reaching an agreement. Let's hear this question and our answer. I have a question about the trigger mechanism. With its activation and the UN resolution requiring Iran to stop enrichment, will the agency solely verify safeguard commitments, or will it also confirm Iran's adherence to halting and suspending enrichment as mandated?
آژانس تنها تعهدات پادمانی رو راستیازمایی خواهد کرد یا پایبندی ایران به این توقف و تعلیق غنیسازی رو هم راستیازمایی خواهد کرد. خب ما باید این راستیازمایی کنیم ولی در حال حاضر این کار رو نمی کنیم. این در واقع بخشی از گفتگویی است که تا اینجا داشتیم. ما قادر نیستیم که این کار رو بکنیم در این لحظه به واسطه این دو عامل. یکی این که از یک سو فعالیت نظامی هر از جنگایی در جریان هست و ایران تعامل نداشته با ما.
My second question addresses the critical ongoing Iran-US negotiations. Can the United States and Iran realistically reach a comprehensive agreement on the duration of restrictions on Iran's nuclear enrichment program or on the status of its enriched uranium stockpiles without an assessment from the International Atomic Energy Agency?
What would be the agency's role in that case?
البته که میتونن. الان امیدوارم که این کارو نکنن. چون خب دو کشور میتونن با هم دیگه هر توافقی که میخوان داشته باشن، ولی من فکر میکنم که حتی خود اونها هم این رو واقف باشن که یک توافقی که راستیازمایی مناسب بخش از اون نباشه در واقع یک توهم توافق هست، برای اینکه شما نمیدونید که طرف دیگر به مفاد این توافق پایبند هست یا نه. بنابراین فکر میکنم که اذعان کنن خودشون هم که آژانس باید نقش مهمی ایفا.
The United States also today explained a draft resolution among the members of the Board of Governors, which is a resolution against the Islamic Republic's nuclear program. In fact, this resolution has been prepared based on the agency's report, and the United States has also asked the Islamic Republic in this draft resolution to immediately cooperate with the agency, inform where Iran's enriched uranium stockpiles are located, and also allow IAEA inspectors to go and inspect Iran's nuclear sites, including sites that have been bombed. And finally, we also witnessed the Islamic Republic's reaction to this draft resolution, which threatened the agency and announced that the agency must act cautiously, and that the Islamic Republic will not cooperate with the agency and the international community under pressure and coercion.
Ahmad Samadi was reporting. The Iranian national football team's first training session in Mexico was held hours after the national players arrived in Tijuana amidst tight security measures. Published images show that Mexican police and military forces accompanied the national team's route from the airport to their hotel with special security arrangements. Tijuana has been chosen as the national team's base after the U.S. imposed restrictions on the Iranian caravan's presence on its soil. Iran's foreign ministry spokesperson stated that the national team is barred from entering the United States over 48 hours ahead of their scheduled international competition. My colleague Reza Moderes has joined us from Tijuana, Mexico. Reza, I think finally, after all these controversies and troubles and the visa issue, maybe the team members can finally breathe a sigh of relief on the eve of their matches.
Of course, it seems that new troubles might still lie ahead for the Iranian football team. Fardad, just minutes before I started our conversation, and barely an hour ago upon my arrival in Tijuana, the Iranian football team's bus made its appearance. As you've also reported in the news, and as we personally witnessed, the security measures implemented to transport the Iranian team from the airport directly to their hotel were remarkably extensive. Later, their entry into the stadium, specifically Estadio Caliente and Tijuana was conducted under very, very tight and visible security protocols. These protective measures were exceptionally high, reflecting significant precautions. Many reporters from various Mexican networks are here. Different news agencies are also present here and are covering the Iranian football team's presence here. Let me also tell you about the route that the national team is supposed to take. As it's been said, if they want to get to Los Angeles by land, the route we took takes approximately 2.5 hours from Los Angeles to Mexican soil to this area where we are. But entering the US can naturally be a challenge for the national players and members of the Iranian football team. As they said, they can enter US soil 48 hours before the start of the match. How they are supposed to enter US soil, what measures the US Border Patrol has considered for the Iranian team to enter there. After all, 27 players, along with the coaching staff, are supposed to enter. The travel situation for the Iranian football team remains deeply ambiguous. Each member, despite their valid visa and Iranian passport, faces rigorous questioning at the border, potentially requiring separate individual interviews. This adds significant uncertainty for the team, creating stress and unpredictable delays for preparations. Furthermore, to Iran international viewers, yesterday I attended a substantial protest rally of opponents of the Islamic Republic, underscoring the political climate and related international scrutiny. That's another challenge, meaning the confrontation of the Iranian football team, their players, with opponents of the Islamic Republic who were present outside the Los Angeles stadium since yesterday, preparing themselves there for the match day. When I was talking to them about the lion and sun flags, they were saying they'll try to get them into the stadium no matter what, by any means possible, like through an app or by wearing t-shirts under their t-shirts. And they have other plans too. It's a dual feeling, you know? I guess supporting the football team, being a fan of the football team is, well, one of the challenges for all Iranians around the world right now. But what I can tell you here about Tijuana, their practice is happening right now. I think it'll go on for another hour, maybe an hour and a half. After that, they'll head back to their hotel and get settled. And in the afternoons, they usually hold practices. Maybe the weather will cool down a bit too, so they can get ready for their training sessions. Anyway, as you mentioned, the team has undoubtedly breathed a significant sigh of relief after enduring that incredibly long and exhausting 20-hour flight, arriving in Tijuana early Sunday morning via a private airline, whose main office is notably in Germany. Must have been a welcome sight after such a grueling journey. Importantly, those persistent visa headaches, which often present a considerable administrative burden for international squads, are finally behind them. This allows a shift in focus. However, I believe new challenges, new headaches certainly lie ahead for the Iranian football team. They still face demands like overcoming jet lag, adjusting to local conditions, and intense training sessions, with just 7 days now until their crucial first match against New Zealand at the Los Angeles Stadium. They'll soon need to depart Tijuana and fully prepare for the competition. The hotel they're staying at is remarkably close, offering a notably short commute. It's just a 3, 4, or maybe 5-minute drive to reach the stadium for practice, which is a definite convenience. They've likely breathed a collective sigh of relief now that their complex visa issue has finally been resolved, alleviating a major hurdle. However, what still makes them genuinely worried and potentially causes problems is the intricate process regarding their actual entry onto US soil. An Iraqi team player experienced a significant setback enduring a 7-hour interrogation by airport border police upon arrival in Chicago en route to Los Angeles. This prolonged detention caused immense stress and severely disrupted his travel itinerary. Such delays critically undermine adherence to FIFA regulations for international matches. These rules strictly require teams to be in the host city a minimum of 24 hours before a game, a vital period for player acclimatization and final preparations. Additionally, the day prior mandates a coordination meeting and a pre-match press conference, where the head coach, captain, and a designated player must be present. A single player's extended delay can severely compromise a team's ability to fulfill these crucial pre-match obligations. We'll have to see what measures have been put in place for the Iranian football team, and when exactly they'll arrive in Los Angeles. And I guess I'd say they're breathing a sigh of relief now, but the challenges for the Iranian football team, leading up to at least their first match, are still ongoing.
Thank you, my colleague Reza Mohades, reporting from Tijuana, Mexico. During the World Cup games, Iran International's expert team will also provide special coverage from Mexico to Canada and, naturally, in the United States, of Iran's matches and other important games of this World Cup. And with that, we've reached the end of tonight's 24 program. Thank you for joining us. You can watch the program again on YouTube a little later.